Hagan. By way of introduction, I'll tell you who I am by telling you who I'm not. I'm just a guy. I'm a dad. I don't have any alphabet soup behind my name. I don't have a PhD in this field or any other. I've got 4 kids. I have a wife. I have a mortgage. I have 3 cars. I have moles eating up my front yards. I bet I'm just like you. Okay? I'm just a guy. Or not, fathers make a difference. Let's take a look at the impact on the family when fathers are not around at all. Okay? A couple of statistics for you. 63% of youths that commit suicide are from fatherless homes. 85% of behavior disordered children come from fatherless homes. 85% of youth sitting in prisons come from fatherless homes. 82% of teenage girls who get pregnant come from fatherless homes. Holy cow. So the statistics are overwhelming. Fathers do make a difference. Fathers are important, and that really is the purpose of what we're here to talk about tonight. We're all busy, right? So we all have jobs, hobbies, got a house to manage, we've got activities with the kids, right? Everybody's busy. Who wants to do one more thing? So busy, busy, busy. I would check in with my wife. So I travel a little bit for a living, okay? And I would check in with my wife at the evenings, or if I had to travel over a weekend, I would check in over the weekend. What I found was my wife was spending time with the kids, and she would take them to and from events, and she would spend time with them at home, and they would go to their friends and play video games, and they'd watch television shows, maybe that they weren't supposed to, and they'd come back with questions. Well, you know what we saw over Tommy's house? Guess this? So she had these teaching moments. She was spending the time with my kids, and she would tell me, oh, you won't believe what happened today. You know, they came home and they got punched in the nose, or they caught a fish, or they were over at Johnny's house and something happened. So she was telling me about raising our kids, and I wasn't there. And so, okay, I thought, well, that's kind of cute. And then after a while, I got sort of irritated. Said, you know what? All this stuff that I thought I would get to later, I was missing. I was missing these. I was missing raising my kids because I was busy. So I don't do too many bright things, but one of the things that I did when I got to thinking about the fact that I'm missing out on my kids growing up, right? What am I going to do? So I came up with this idea, okay? When my kids hit a certain age, I'll let them plan a trip, okay? And on this trip, it'll be a one-on-one trip with Dad where we get to spend some time together over the course of several days, okay? And I'll just be looking for these opportunities to talk about life in general. So I'll use the world as my laboratory, okay? And then this trip, to get them totally distracted on what, on the concept of this trip, I'll let them plan the whole trip. So they get a budget. They get whatever it is, $200, $5,000. I can promise you they can mismanage either amount. And I had some very tight parameters around this trip. I don't care where we go, what we do, what we eat, where we sleep, where we stay, what we drive. They plan the whole trip. They make all the reservations. They spend time on the phone. They have to plan the schedule. They go to the store with their mother. I don't do a lot of grocery shopping, but they go to the store with their mother and they figure out how much broccoli costs, right? How much does stuff cost? So they're totally distracted by this trip. They get several months to do it. I picked 12 months. They get 12 months to plan this trip, okay? What I did was I took a step back and said, what do I want to teach these guys? First of all, who am I? And what do I want to teach them? And more importantly, how am I going to do that? Okay? So what I did was I took the same amount of time and I spent the time figuring out what it was that I wanted to pass on to these young people before I lose them, right? Before they're up and out and off to college. Okay? So I did this unbeknownst to them. While they were going through their planning, I was going through my introspection and trying to figure out what it was I wanted to teach them. When you think about the things that are, at least what I found, when you think about the things that are important to you in a way to teach that, if you can create an environment that they're receptive to listening, it's a whole lot better than is your homework done. So on to the trip. Some interesting things about the trip. I had an opportunity. I'm not a teacher. I'm a business guy, right? But I had an opportunity to spend some time with my kids and to watch them. I watched them in situations that I knew they were going to get in jams. They thought it was going to be this big trip to Disney World, right? Life's easy, you guys, we know it all, no problem, right? So they go through this, and all of a sudden, they get into one jam after another, after another, after another, which is sort of what you're looking for, okay? And at least my tact was, I let them struggle. Here, right? You're here when you go on a trip. You get out of town, and all of a sudden they take a look at you, and you're the only thing that's familiar. So they start to come this way. And through the course of the trip, they just get closer and closer and closer because it's comfortable. It's comfortable. Then you got it. Right? Then you can do something. What did my kids learn through the course of this trip? They learned about budgeting, scheduling. They learned about money. They learned maybe that their old man's not as dumb as they thought he was. What did I learn? I learned a lot about myself, okay? Any coaches or teachers in here? If you teach or coach? I mean, if you have to know something, right, just try to teach it or coach it. Because you have to believe it, you have to understand it, you have to explain it 18 ways. You have to say the same thing at least a dozen times, right? So that's what this is. Learned a lot about my kids. I learned a lot about myself.